just insane, talking too much. Oh, I've had enough. Don't go away, don't go away. Time can slip away like the taste of your lips. We couldn't last. You left
G'day and welcome to AIM. My name's Stephen Hunt and I'm so excited to welcome you to our first ever AIM Hackathon in partnership with ARIA. Now before I begin, I'd like to pay my respects to the Gadigal people, the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today, paying my respects to their elders past and present. Now, we are coming to you live from Surrey Hills. This is AIM headquarters in Sydney, and AIM is going through some really exciting changes right now, and those changes are being spearheaded by its new CEO, Dr. Greg Clark. And Dr. Greg Clark would love to say a couple of words of welcome. So, over to you, Greg.
Hello, I'm Greg Clark, the CEO of the Australian Institute of Music, and together with ARIA, we are delighted to be hosting today's hackathon. AIM is all about music and all about the future of music, and music technology is a big part of that. So we can't wait to see what amazing projects come out of today's work. Have a great day.
All right, thanks a lot, Greg. Much appreciated. So it probably goes without saying that those who participated in this hackathon have had a massive week. And also the people who've been putting it on, us here over at AIM and all of the crew. So today is our demo day. It's a really, really exciting day and we've got a lot of exciting things to share. The hackathon itself started off with 16 teams entering, and out of those 16, we ended up with 7 completing. So it's quite a rigorous process to get through to the end. Out of that 7, we're now down to 4 finalists, but only one of them can take away the prize money of $5,000. So before we crack into that, wouldn't mind just sharing a couple of slides with you, and I'll talk to you about a really exciting thing that's happening at AIM just today. So we are actually launching Australia's first startup incubator that is dedicated to music startups, the AIM Innovation Hub, or as we call it for short, the iHub. And as I said, things are changing over at AIM. So we're doing lots of different innovative programs to try to make it a really exciting place for students to come and for industry to come and engage. For those of you who've been following the music press, you might have seen the news about 2030 Records, which is one of these endeavours, and that's a student-run record label. But for today, we're here to talk about the Innovation Hub. And you're probably wondering, what's an Innovation Hub? What's an incubator? Well, essentially, it's a community of people who are gathering together to support each other in innovation. And that community is driven by people who are really passionate, including mentors and experts, as well as the staff that support it. It's also a community of investors that can get behind these ideas, invest in them, help them grow, help them scale. And then lastly, a community of industry partners who come together to support these startups and these founders. So as we launch today, we've got 5 startups that we're working with. So in the middle there, we've got 2030 Records. As I mentioned, this startup was actually created from within AIM. And we do hope that we'll start to see entrepreneurship come from the student body and be able to be realised into real living, breathing companies. But we also have lots of others in the space. Muru Music Health, you may have also heard of, has recently launched an amazing application that supports people who are suffering from cognitive decline. It's a streaming service that's really, really simple for anyone in that older age bracket to use. It helps jog their memories, get them active or help them relax by using music as a therapy. We also have Personal, which is an artificial intelligence startup that mimics the way that the human brain listens to music. And there are tons of applications for that, such as classifying songs, but also looking into things like sync and the Internet of Things, or as we get into smart homes, smart cars. So there's some really, really exciting things ahead for Personal. And then we have Serenade. So Serenade's actually a startup from one of our mentors and investors, Max Shand, who you'll see a little bit later. They just had Lime Cordial come on to one of their founding iterations. And Serenade is where anyone can pay to have an artist perform for them a specific song that they choose and create a video that's just for them. So they can put a message in there, like a birthday message or an announcement or whatever it might be, and that artist will record something specifically for you. So as I said, to start off with a foundation artist like Lime Cordial, I thought was pretty exciting. And then we've got Inverse. And Inverse is trying to use virtual reality to create the new way that we go to see live music. They've built a purpose-built venue in Melbourne where you'll find, if you ever tune into it with a VR headset, you'll be able to sit amongst other real people who are there in real life and enjoy anything from opera to classical to a rock gig. I actually tuned in this week gone to see an opera performance, and it was majestic. It was really, really exciting to see what they'd done. So look out for more there. But we are looking for other companies that need the support, and please get in touch if you're a founder that would love to benefit from the AIM iHub. So what do we do for these companies? Well, at launch, we've got a suite of services here, including connections to the industry, connections to investors, connections to global accelerators such as Techstars in the US or Abbey Road Red in the UK. We've got connections to mentors, academic staff. You can also work with our students as interns, and we're also working on a graduate recruitment program if you're looking for people who are really young, hungry and passionate about the music space. Very importantly, we've actually done a fair bit of work to get a proficiency in applying for government grants together. It's probably one of those things when you do start a company, you think, oh, I've got to go and raise money, I've got to find venture capitalists and pitch them, and they're going to take a share of my company. And absolutely, there might be the right time for that, but a lot of people overlook that the first thing you should probably look to do is apply for a government grant that doesn't take any equity out of your business, retains full control, and it's being a grant, it's a gift. So we're set up to help people apply for those. We also have an industry sandbox, and for the hackathon, we were really excited to be able to partner with Universal Music and Universal Music Publishing, as well as ARIA, to develop a suite of tools that people could use to help validate an idea they might have. But also, we think that AIM, with its 900-strong student body, could be really effective for helping startups validate their ideas quickly and understand whether there's actually any point in pursuing something and getting that initial traction as well. We also recently announced $100,000 worth of scholarships at AIM. One of those is dedicated to innovation. So I'm really excited that at launch we have our first scholarship available, and hopefully through the industry partners that we end up working with, we'll be able to create several more of those. Lastly, we're here today for a hackathon. We intend to do a lot more competitions and hackathons, so stand by for that. I just wanted to give you a little bit of a flavour for some of the mentors and investors that have agreed to work with us as we begin. So Timo Kugler, who actually you'll hear from soon, he was the mentor for all of our participants in the hackathon, and he's also a mentor over at the Founder Institute, which is another incubator in the Sydney area. Jaden Comerford, you probably know from Unified, but he's also a really active investor and a very passionate mentor, so we're excited to work with him. And then lastly, Max Shand, who I mentioned earlier, is one of the founders of Serenade, but you may or may not know, he was also one of the founders of Afterpay, and has therefore gone on to set up himself as an investor as well as a mentor. So it's important to note that we are connected to all of the major venture capital firms as well, and a lot of the basic, well, not basic, but a lot of the more well-known investors in the community. But I think what's special about these three, and what's going to be much more special about what we deliver, is that we're going to find the investors who get music, who invest in music, and who understand how to help that investment grow. So that's going to be our special sauce, and I think it's something that's absolutely needed. As we move into next year, we will attempt to spin up a few more services. So AIM has an amazing facility here, and we're looking to be able to hire that out to startups and founders that need specific types of facilities. We also intend to offer services for hire, such as legal or financial, if required, to get things off the ground. We are currently scoping a co-working space, as well as developing a suite of partner tools that will be on offer for free. Now, the whole point of all this is really to translate all of this innovation and all of this work into jobs. So at AIM, we've got an amazing higher education provider whose sole purpose is to train the students that come in to make sure they have an amazing time and they leave here fit for the workforce. We believe that the iHub will provide an extra level of sophistication for the students that study at AIM to get experience working in early stage businesses, to be exposed to new ideas, and to be that much more attractive to employers when they walk out the door. So lastly, there is going to be a calendar of events for next year posted shortly. We're in talks with a couple of really major industry partners to do some great stuff and actually start to shine a light on innovators in the music industry who, in my opinion, are amazing. Australia has developed some of the best founders who have really pushed the envelope in the world stage, but as yet there's been no coordination or community to support them, and that's what we really hope to change by launching the iHub. So with that said, I want to start to move over to the hackathon, and I'm going to invite my judges to come up onto the stage while I'm just talking about the level set here. So the hackathon, if you've been following it, we briefed a bunch of founders and put the brief out to anybody really to apply. And the brief was that you had to create an idea that improved mental well-being with music or improved physical well-being with music. And as I said earlier, we were able to provide a sandbox of tools thanks to partners UMG, UMPG and ARIA that they were able to use to bring their ideas to life. The judging criteria was firstly that you had to integrate music into the concept, so that was mandatory. And then from there you got 20% for your relevance of innovation, 20% for the feasibility and completeness, 30% for design and usability, and 30% for impact and scalability. And with that, I might see if we could cut back to the live stage. We're back, awesome. And I'd love to welcome our 3 judges who've been working very late the last couple of nights, pouring through all of the submissions and getting to a really great place. I'm really excited to show the finalists they've chosen. We've got 4 of them to show you. And then you will have the opportunity, as out there in the general public, to vote if you wish. I might just ask the team to pop up the voting URLs because there's a good chance you might be watching this on Facebook or on YouTube, which is awesome. Please continue to do that. But if you would like to vote, load up another browser and hit one of the URLs that you're going to see on your screen and get prepared for after you see the submissions. You'll be able to vote on those. But the $5,000 was determined by the 3 of you. And so just to kick off, I would love for each of you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you've been doing in your respective businesses. And then one last little thing, just to make it a bit interesting, I'd love to understand which entrepreneur is your hero and why. All right, over to you, Jackie.
Hi everyone, I'm Jackie Louet-Schrull. I have a pretty unpronounceable surname and I am the founder of Jackster. We are the world's largest official front-facing database of music credits, which sounds like, oh, that's interesting. But if you think of IMDb, we're IMDb on steroids for the music business. And I've been building the company now for 8 years and it's been quite a journey. My favorite entrepreneur and why? Gosh, there are a few, and it might sound a little cliched, but I absolutely love Richard Branson, and he had such an effect on me when I was growing up. I read all of his books, and to this day follow him on Instagram daily. And yeah, I think he's phenomenal. He has shown absolute hustle, grit, abject determination, and he appears to be completely fearless. So he's hence my hero when it comes to entrepreneurs.
Awesome. All right, how about you, Nick?
My name is Nick Johnson, and I'm the founder of 2 startups. One's called Personal AI, which is about creating a new layer of metadata to be able to create personalized experiences with large volumes of music catalog. And the other one, Mirror Music Health, is customized playlists for older people with cognitive decline. I started the first startup 6 years ago, and the second one was started just over a year ago. In terms of well, I can't use Richard Branson now. I'm going to keep it to music, so I'm going to say Quincy Jones. As a businessman, he was incredibly astute on how to navigate the music industry from a very early age. And he created an empire out of that. And I mean, he's created wonderful music, obviously, but I just love the way he approached it and still does today.
All right, over to you, Andrea.
Hi, my name is Andrea Culligan. I'm a bit different in that I actually work for Deloitte. I lead all the corporate ventures and innovation for Australia. And I specifically work in some really unique sectors like the space sector. However, my life prior to Deloitte was definitely not as a consultant. I've been an entrepreneur for 17 years prior to that, starting 7 businesses across 2 countries. Had a couple of big wins, a couple of big losses, and all the other stuff that comes with it. I'm really passionate about innovation and startups and hackathons and incubators and really accelerating new ideas. So I'm really delighted to be here today. Thank you. But I also believe that we can do great things and make a lot of money doing it at the same time. So my favorite entrepreneur is actually Mohammed Yusuf, who was the founder of Grameen Bank, around microloans to support women in impoverished countries and how they can support the development of entrepreneurship all around the world.
Awesome.
Wow.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. And again, thank you so much for giving up your time to actually judge this competition. I know it's quite a big undertaking. What we might do, I'd love just to give the audience a bit of a flavour of what it's like to start a business. And so might just throw a question. We'll start with you, Andrea. But what do you think is the most important thing a startup needs to focus on achieving in that first 100 days or first year in business?
It's a good question, and a lot of people will talk to you about, strategy and execution and everything to that effect. But I think the first question you really want to ask yourself is, what is the goal? What is the vision? And it sounds a bit esoteric or qualitative and hard to imagine, but that ends up becoming the North Star from which all decisions are being made. And the second question that comes with that is that how are you going to define that unique point of difference to create that vision? So if you say to me, I want to make $5 million and I want to impact 2,000 people and I want to do it by 2024, that helps you answer, well, is my revenue model going to meet that? Are the customer groups that I'm approaching going to be able to pay that? Is there propensity for that to actually occur in this market? Is the competitive landscape too difficult for me to enter? So the big question is, what is the vision? But I don't mean it in a way that is ambiguous. I mean, what is the real vision for this business that helps you understand the rest of the playbook for how you're going to get there?
Yeah, awesome answer. Nick or Jackie, have you got anything to add from your experiences? What were the things in that first sort of phase, that first initial bit that you felt you really had to focus on?
I think adding to what Andrea said, that's definitely super important. I would say the other important thing is to really understand your market. If you are entering into a new space, you need to do your homework. You need to work harder than everyone else to understand how you're going to disrupt, because there's always going to be competition. There's competition in my space, there's competition in your space. I mean, there always is. But I think competition is good and healthy. And as long as you understand your market, you will be able to figure out how to compete. So I think adding to what Andrea said, that was definitely the focus for me when I started. And I think that's super useful for everyone starting a new business.
Thank you. What about you, Jax? Anything to add?
My first 100 days was spent doing a phenomenal amount of research, so the homework, and unbeknownst to me at the time, the wireframes for the whole platform. So, really figuring out what was needed. And I did 269 meetings with the industry in that time to find out who needed what from what we were building. So for me, the first 100 days, in the very beginning of the journey, it really was research, homework.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds tough, but if it wasn't, everybody would be doing it, right?
Exactly.
Nick, talking about getting going, one of the hardest parts that I guess most startups and ideas succeed or fail with is actually getting the fuel to be able to move, which is often money. And how hard is it to actually get out there and raise money in Australia, or even as a maybe to give this a bit more of a point, as a music-focused entrepreneur?
That definitely adds a layer, being in the music space. We often only hear about the success stories of like this company raised X and Y and it's amazing. So therefore, if you don't raise money with the first 2 meetings, it feels like a failure. But the reality is you have to pitch a lot to get money. It's a numbers game, really. You might get lucky at the first pitch, but it might take the 100th pitch to get there. I think it's definitely a tough space to be in to raise money in Australia. Generally, like the UK, it's pretty risk adverse and there's safer bets. But having said that, when I started my first business, from idea on a napkin to business plan to first funding was 2 months and 2 meetings. From then, I also did the other side, which was hundreds of meetings before I could get money. So I guess that all comes down to research again and prep. Really know who you're talking to and why, and understand their motivation so you know how to pitch it to them.
Awesome. Anything to add from the other guests?
Yeah, look, the first 2.5 years of Jackster was built on 2 filing cabinets that we got from the street and a piece of plywood that we bought from Bunnings and painted. And I basically just worked from home, and it was really hard to know, how do you get in front of investors? How do you knock on those doors? How do you meet people? And I literally just had to go out to my network and ask, do you know any investors? And from there it started. And literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of presentations. So 2.5 years in, I gave what I would consider the worst pitch I've ever given. And the person I was sitting opposite said, I'm going to give you $250,000. And my very eloquent response was, come again, because I'd never had that happen before. And that was the beginning of everything. But it took a long time to learn how to hone the pitch, how to pitch, and how to know when people are wasting your time and you're potentially wasting theirs as well. It's the best thing you can learn is you can read a room and find out this isn't what they're here for, and call it and go, is this what you're after? And if they say no, go, no problem.
Yeah, great advice. And Andrea, you probably look at the sector from a much more macro level, but what do you think the health of the investment community is?
Look, I always think there's tons of money out there to get. So I kind of get unnerved when people say there's no money out there. I think it's, to the other 2 points, it's, have you done your research? Are you clear on what your customer or your investor wants? And have you courted them? You know, it's like a cold call. Showing up in someone's office and asking them for $500,000 without them even knowing who you are is actually kind of a bit dismissive to think that that would work. So I think there's a lot of money out there. I think it's a case in how you actually acquire it. I know there's a lot of high net worth families that are also very interested in investing, and that there's a variety of different paths in order to acquire cash. But I always have an argument, which is, do you need capital or do you need customers? And sometimes the better question is, how do you make sure that you have customers paying for your platform versus the capital being the #1 equity loss? Because sometimes those early days, you don't actually know the value of the equity of your business. And you're giving away equity instead of, say, con notes or loans that you don't actually have the answer to, and you might be selling yourself short too soon in the game, and then liquidating your opportunities as you're going, getting larger and stronger. So whenever I meet with startups and they go, oh, we need to invest capital, my first question is, why aren't you getting it from your customers? Because if you do have paying customers, then the reality is it's much easier to get investors and your equity will be much higher value.
Yeah, very, very wise advice. And again, it's just kind of echoes, I guess, a lot of the strategy we're taking here at the Innovation Hub, which is to go after the non-dilutive capital first in that early stage. And plenty of grants and things that you can access.
Tons.
Also, as Andrea said, it is important to establish a relationship with prospective investors. It's incredibly rude to go into someone's office and go, hi, I'm here, I'm new, can I have $1 million? You just wouldn't do it in everyday life, and you shouldn't do it with investors either. So it can be a long relationship building that trust, and it's important to do. It takes time.
Yeah. I agree, and it's one of those really interesting, difficult things for startups to do. Probably one of the things that, in my opinion, is even more important and is even harder to do is to get culture right. And I want to stay with you, Jackie, because I've met your team and I've been in your office, and you've somehow managed to develop one of the most amazing cultures I've ever seen, and I've seen a lot. But I guess my question is, like, how important is it to shape that culture right at the start? And how do you find that in those first employees?
Yeah, it's incredibly important because you always have to think about what's reversible and what's non-reversible. And if you start how you want to finish, as my mum would always say, it's really, really, really important. So it starts with you. You have to embody the culture, and that will guide the team as to how you want to operate as a company and an organisation. One of the other things that we did really early on too was that we hired an HR manager. So there's a company called Perform HR that works with small companies and startups, and it really helped because our team is as important as our product, as important as our customer base and our investors. And if the team's not functioning as an Olympic team, but also as a family, it doesn't work. So there were all sorts of things that we did, from, you know, MVP once a month gets voted by peers to
Nice.
we have all sorts of different cultural events we do. Last week we had our annual Christmas tree decorating afternoon with Christmas carols and mince pies and champagne. So it's all those little things, but they add up and they're important. When you're a company that's our size and you're not Atlassian or Canva, and you can't have climbing walls or Michelin star chefs, you've got to find other ways to keep the team motivated and engaged, and you've got to look after them. They're your best asset. So yeah, it's incredibly important.
And I would argue that Michelin star chefs and climbing walls mean nothing.
Yeah.
You know, I think in all the teams that I've led and all of the challenges, I've had some very interesting leadership journeys where I've done a terrible job for a period of time, and learned from that is setting the culture, leading from yourself, but also owning up when you're not leading from those values. And I always, what I've baffled to realize, it took me so long to figure out, is actually just holding people to the account of which they've chosen to accept for themselves is the number one thing. So performance feedback is probably the number one thing that I would say creates high-performing teams. Does the team know what they're accountable for? Are we holding them account to that? And are we giving them constructive feedback in order for them to be better? High performers want to continuously be high performers.
So true.
Yeah.
They don't want to hide.
Yeah.
They don't want fake news.
No.
They want really constructive stuff straight down the lens.
Yeah.
And those are the people that actually stay on that startup journey with you in the most meaningful and amazing ways, as you sound like you've already experienced.
Yeah, absolutely. Nick, I might throw to you. So I want to talk about trends. So I think for the last couple of years, people all talk about blockchain, and then it turned into XR, which involves VR. Voice has been a big theme in music, but what do you see as the emerging kind of trends in this kind of innovative space for the music industry? And I might just add to that, what do you also see as the biggest challenge at the moment? And is it this kind of COVID thing that we're going through, or something else that's emerging?
I could spend a lot of time on this question, but I won't. I think the first thing to think about in music in general is what's the end goal with the application. And oftentimes, I personally feel that a lot of inventions are gimmicky, and they're short-term solutions, they're entertainment, but they don't actually address the problem, which is people want a better music experience, whether it be live or digital. So this is why certain things work better than others. Blockchain, there was a lot of hype around it, but there was some fundamental complications with getting that to scale. So it didn't work out necessarily yet. But I think one of the prohibitors still is around the music licensing, and this is a very common subject, but I think it's because there's so many layers to it. The complexity just stifles innovation in many ways, because it's really hard to think of something quick, build something and try it, because there's so many hurdles you have to jump through. It's getting easier and it's getting better, like having these sandboxes that you can experiment with. But I think that's probably the biggest inhibitor at the moment. In terms of what I think will be the sort of the trend in the next couple of years, I guess there's kind of two. One is a bit self-serving, but I think it's all about personalization that is really taking center stage. And I think because of COVID, that actually has gotten more attention, the importance of that. But I think also because of COVID, the opportunities around artists being able to monetize their careers through gaming, I think is a very interesting one. We've seen it with Fortnite and Roblox as examples. I think Roblox and Lil Nas X had 33 million people in 3 shows of 10 minutes. I mean, the opportunities you have around merchandising in a gaming experience is huge. So I think that's probably, in the next couple of years, that's going to be the focus, with live performances now going digital. But longer term than that, I think it's all about the value proposition, which is personalization.
Anything to add from Andrea or Jackie? What do you see coming up?
Lots of mega trends.
Yeah.
Look, I think if I was to take all the mega trends around what's occurring in technology and what's occurring in innovation in general, if I was to wrap them all up, I would say it's purpose, right? So how are we impacting each other, our community, and our world in a more meaningful way? And how you attribute that to music is, as an example of this innovation hub at this point in time. But it could be around sustainability, climate change, community living, remote and regional engagement, Aboriginal communities. These are trends that I'll use as a whole as around purpose. And then there's a variety of different kind of stickers that are coming off of that around different sectors. But it's wrapped up in a big bow of, we want to care about something. We believe in something bigger than ourselves. And so businesses, 86% of millennials will only purchase from purpose-driven organizations now. It's a primary criteria. So I think the messages we send, no matter what product, service, or offering we're delivering, should be focused on what is the greater good. And I don't mean that in an esoteric way, because as I said, I'm a big believer in being able to make a ton of money and doing really good things. But we, focusing on what's important and what's bigger than what we're actually focused on ourselves is going to be critical.
Yeah, absolutely. If you've ever been on a panel with me, and I think it's probably just Jackie, you'll know about champagne bombs, which is a little game I like to play. And basically it means the 3 of you have the chance to take home a nice bottle of bubbles. But what it really does is it gives me the chance to ask a bit of a tougher question. And the way this works, I call it champagne bombs. So I'm going to put the champagne here between the 3 of you. And whoever chooses to answer the question gets to keep the champagne. And essentially what you're doing is you're shielding your fellow judges and your fellow panelists from having to answer the tough question. But today's one, it's not too tough. But
so what if we all answer it, Stephen?
well, then I think we're going to have to put this on chill and share it afterwards.
I'm glad I'm not wearing my heels.
So my tough question is, what's the thing that you're least proud of that you've had to do to succeed?
I've got a really bad one.
Okay, I've got a pretty bad one too, but you go first.
Let's compete.
Yeah, no.
I love it. I feel like mine is very tame.
Go forth and conquer.
I had a publishing company for a long time. We had 11 titles. One of them was a food service magazine. I was actually telling a story on the weekend. Heavily male-dominated industry. I was one of the very few females in the industry. I was selling advertising. I was in my mid-20s, trying to survive in business all day long. Knew for a fact that one particular client found me attractive. And so I pretended to like this person in order to get advertising money. He was married. I never engaged in any relationship or anything to that effect, but I flirted with this person to kind of put food on the table at the time, thinking that that was actually the right thing to do. And I mean, it's probably funny in some elements, but also when I look back, what I realize is that I was complicit to a much bigger problem that was at play at that moment, whereas he then realized that that was acceptable. And whilst I had the confidence and nous and ability to decline the late night calls and the requests for dinners and things like that and play it within the barriers that I knew I was playing, I was complicit to him potentially having that impact on someone else. So I wouldn't say it helped me become successful. I would say it helped me land a couple of deals that still sit in my guts pretty heavily.
It's a good one. Anyone else?
So I have a similar vein.
Yeah.
I was doing an investor pitch a couple of years ago, and I was talking about how, you know, if we do X, this would happen with Y for Jackster, and just imagine if in the future Jackster could do X, Y, Z. And one of the investors, and I just happened to mention a particular female artist because she popped into my brain, and he pulled out his phone and went, "Oh my God, look at how hot she is." And he had effectively a naked photo of this artist, and then said something about her that was really completely inappropriate. And I felt complicit because I felt uncomfortable, and I laughed.
Yeah.
And I really wish I hadn't.
Yeah.
And they kept going, and I said, "So gents, let's get back to the pitch, because I'm here to pitch you my company." And we got back to the pitch, and then when we got in the lift and we went downstairs, he said, "So are you going to have children?" And I said, "What's that got to do with anything?" And he said, "Well, women can't run a company and have babies. It just doesn't work." And I turned around to him, I said, "Well, you've really hurt me, because my husband and I have tried for a baby for 8.5 years, and we actually can't have kids. Does that answer your question?"
Oh, no.
Then he turned around and said something else, at which point I turned around to him and I went, "#me too, you asshole. Do you want me to tag what you just said?" But it had taken the whole meeting and that lift ride for me to find my voice, to let him know it wasn't okay. And that felt really icky. And I didn't succeed in him becoming an investor, because I called our broker and said, "Don't ever put another woman in the room with that man ever again. And I don't want his money." But it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And it's happened more times than I wish it would, and it did,
Yeah.
and continues to sometimes.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing.
It was a bit heavy.
It's shiny. Yeah, well, it's supposed to draw out
Can we
those,
both get the
those
champagne?
answers.
Yeah,
I think
because
so.
Nick's like,
I feel like we should share it.
But it's a really important issue to be discussing too, because I think the Me Too movement, you know, opened a lot of people's eyes and gave a voice to a lot of people in the music industry, and we've all heard countless stories that are in that vein. So it's really important that change is happening, and thank you both for sharing. But I don't know, Nick, did you want to get a glass in on the champagne, or are you going to sit out?
Look, I can't really add to that much, other than when I was a DJ for quite a while, I obviously saw a lot of things that you know, I was never involved in, but it's the fact that I had to associate with these people in some capacity because of my career, and it was something that I was never very comfortable with. I actually never enjoyed the nightlife. I loved the music, so it was always a continuous conflict for me, for wanting to perform, wanting to DJ, wanting to travel the world, but having to deal with everything that came with it. And in some countries more than others, and it was always kind of like just, you know, smile and not get involved, but still know things are happening. And you know, that was ultimately why I stopped as well, because I was just done with that world. So I guess it's from the other side of saying, I've seen this happen. It's never okay, and then it's always the matter of when do you step in, when do you, like, it was never people that I knew directly, because they would definitely get an earful. I'm Dutch, so I have no issue with speaking very directly, but you know, just that those things happen is infuriating in any sense. And sorry that does happen still. But yeah, I definitely don't deserve the champagne out of that. So I will have a sip though.
We'll share it.
We'll share.
Yeah.
Go on. So just before I ask my next question, I want to let the audience know that you can get involved too. We're going to just open up a live Q&A, and I'll take a question from that after this one, if you have one. But we're getting towards the end of our interview stage, and then we're going to hear from our founders. So I'm curious, because the whole reason we've sort of done this hackathon and that we've set up this event today is to launch this innovation hub. So I'm curious to ask you, what do you see, pardon me, how do you see the innovation hub supporting the ecosystem? Like, what do you really think it's it's going to be able to do for everybody? I might start with you, Jackie.
Well, first and foremost, I wish this had existed when I started my journey back in the day, because I would often go to different events and be one of 3 or 4 women in the room. And I was, back when I was starting my journey, which was 8 years ago now, everybody was a CTO founder and they could write the code. I had the idea, I didn't have the ability to write the code, which was really terrifying. So to have an ecosystem where people can connect, share their ideas, learn from peers, have people from the industry come in and give direction, and really important feedback at the beginning of your journey, not when you're years into it and it might become harder or more challenging to pivot. I think it's tremendous. I am so excited and will support this 1000%. I would have really changed, I think, the speed of my journey if I'd had this ecosystem personally around me during my journey.
Awesome. Well, thank you. We're very pleased to be doing it. How about you, Nick?
In a very similar vein, I started shortly after you, but similar. I had the idea, but not an engineer. At the time when I started my first business, I didn't really quite understand what machine learning was. So I had to do a crash course in that. But it was the ability to be able to talk with other people about it and just get a sense of, what do you think? Have you heard of something before? So I think community around this space, and music tech being such a small thing in the country, is super valuable. Super valuable. Even if it's just to go, oh, I've got this crazy idea, what do you think? And get some feedback from somebody that understands. There's a thing, obviously, if you're doing, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Andrea, but in certain sectors in this country, you can get a lot of feedback very quickly because there's a lot of experts. When it comes to music tech, not necessarily, but everyone has an opinion. So it's really nice to be able to be surrounded by people that understand where you're coming from. And the feedback can still be good or bad, but just having that environment is, it's amazing.
Awesome. How about you, Andrea?
Yeah, look, I've had the pleasure of being involved with probably 100 different innovation labs and being an EIR and a number of accelerators. And whilst the outcome is always intended to find that golden nugget, what it actually does is it starts to change the culture and the perception. And it helps people be what they couldn't see before. So to Nick's point and to Jackie's point, you don't know, you can't be what you can't see. And if you don't know that the opportunities exist, if you don't know that there is an environment of which to belong to, then you're forever feeling like it doesn't actually eventuate. So innovation hubs like this will give a voice and an aspiration for others to evolve and innovate, even if it's micro innovation, all the way through to the next big idea. It allows people to be what they now can see, which they wouldn't have had the opportunity to do otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, looks like we've got a question here. It's coming from Ben. What advice would you give to somebody in the crowd who's watching who's got a great idea?
Make a start. Just make a start.
Yeah, just
seriously.
crack.
That's what it's about. If you could see my first wireframes of Jackster and what I mocked up, but honestly, it helped me build the vision. Definitely just make a start. Put pen to paper or fingers to keyboards, but just make a start.
Yeah, and just to add on that, tell everyone. Most people think that if you have an idea, you should keep it to yourself and you should never share it with anyone, and someone's going to steal your IP.
Yes.
You know, it takes so long to actually create and build something. So it's much more effective to make sure you've got an audience and a customer first. And so share that idea with as many people as you can. It will evolve, iterate, put it on a piece of paper, draw it out, share it, show it, do a quick prototype. Don't spend hundreds of thousands of dollars. Just put something together and be like, what do you think? Would you buy this? And then my favorite question, and I'm sure Nick's heard this a couple of times from me, I used to run these entrepreneur workshops with this amazing founder, and the first day we ran the course, he looks at me and he goes, hey, we're just going to take a break. Andrea, do you want a coffee? I said, yeah, I'd love one. And he says, that'll be $12.50. And I'm like, I don't want to pay $12.50. And he looks at me and goes, well, how much would you pay? And it was such a great reminder of share the idea, but also define what's the propensity for paying. So if you say the idea, say, okay, well, I'm going to charge you $50 a month for it. Oh, well, I wouldn't pay that. Okay, well, how much would you pay for it? and what would be exciting for you. So share with as many people as you can, like literally everyone, your grandma, your dog, your friends, your boss, everyone, and then ask them about what they're going to pay for it. Because that actually hones in on what you're going to invest your time and money and energy into.
Amazing advice. All right. Well, I think we're at that stage in the day where I'd love to introduce Timo Kugler, who has been mentoring all of the entrants in the hackathon, and he's prepared a reel from each of them. So they actually submitted a video for us to be COVID safe, so we didn't have too many people in this room. But I'd love him to introduce the finalists, and for the judges, please watch on, and we'll come back and have a chat about what you've seen. So over to you, Timo.
Thank you, Steve. Hi, my name is Timo Kugler, and I had the pleasure to be involved in the AIM 2020 Hackathon as the entrepreneur in residence and a mentor to our contestants. I've been working with them all week in shaping their ideas into more cohesive pitches and ultimately into the submissions you will see today. For me personally, it was a great experience because I was met with a lot of passion, dedication, and some really great ideas in tackling the challenge that we set out for the contestants. So before I introduce them to you one by one, let me just share the challenge with you first. It's no understatement to say that 2020 has been a really challenging year with sometimes tremendous negative impact on mental health, also physical well-being for people all around the world. So we invited innovators and entrepreneurs from the music industry to come up with ideas for new products and services that leverage music to improve our overall well-being. We've been really blown away by some of the ideas and the concepts that we've seen, and we want to share them with you now one by one.
Hi there, I'm Scott Polkleb, and this is Lavender. A panic attack is a brief episode of intense anxiety. Symptoms include racing heartbeat, shortness of breath, dizziness and trembling. Approximately 5% of people in Australia will experience some form of panic attacks in their lifetime, and 2.6% will end up experiencing panic disorder over a 12 to 18 month period. Panic disorder is where panic attacks are recurring and disabling. This includes unexpected panic attacks, constant worry that you will have a panic attack, and significant change in behaviour to avoid panic attacks. Researchers have documented that listening to music can be effective for reducing panic attack symptoms in people who generally have high levels of anxiety. Music activates sensory pathways that compete with pain pathways in the brain. Because the music is competing with the pain pathways, it appears to help to take the focus away from the pain. How might we enable and equip sufferers of panic disorder to reduce anxiety and improve coping skills in their moment of need? This solution leverages one of the most common symptoms, heart rate, and uses one of the most intellectual and emotionally engaging forms of art, music. Our MVP solution is a mobile app that pairs with a heart rate-enabled biometric wearable. When the user feels that they're in a state of panic or heightened anxiety, they open the app and simply tap Start My Session. The app is powered by a machine learning platform and recommendations engine, which connects via an API to the Universal Music Group catalogue of over 100,000 tracks. On first use, we play a track pre-selected from our research that we believe will help to offset the symptoms of a panic attack. We monitor the heart rate of the user through their wearable. This includes if it is rising or falling and the velocity and trajectory of this movement. In this case, the heart rate continues to climb. Based on this, our machine learning platform makes a real-time assessment of whether the track is working, and if required, a recommendations engine will serve an alternative that might have a better result. In this case, we see the heart rate declining. We are connected to the operating system and location and weather APIs so that we can begin to profile the location and environmental factors of when a user is suffering an attack. Our strategy is to evolve our product over 4 key phases, starting with learning about our users and their behaviours, then working to better profile them and curating recommendations that work for them. Finally, we plan on developing an AI platform to real-time compose bespoke audio or binaural tracks and serve them in the moment to our users, building out our own catalogue of IP. Initially, we'll be looking to launch our MVP relying primarily on angel and seed funding. It's then our plan to move into a monetization strategy leveraging a freemium and subscription-based model for app usage. Finally, we will look to license our real-time AI-generated compositions for wider consumption, as well as the sale of our data for research purposes. Thanks for your time.
This is Nico, and I am the creator of Drop It, an augmented reality music sharing platform. So at Drop It, we have realized that the global population age 60 and over has doubled since 1980 and will double again by 2050. Unfortunately, the infrastructure to take care of this population is not developing at the same rate, and as a result, we're seeing a growth in mental health issues due to loneliness that has only recently worsened due to COVID-19. In addition, the gap between the generation is growing and has been exacerbated due to the digitization of the world. The elderly population feels more and more disconnected and left out by the millennials who mainly communicate on social media or other platforms that feel a little bit complex for the elderly. So the idea is really to design a platform or a product or an ecosystem that reconnects the generation around a common and universal interest, which is the music, and as a result reduce the sentiment of loneliness and ultimately improve general mental health. So imagine if my grandma could see a music message from me in augmented reality only by pointing her phone at my portrait on her wall. Imagine if anyone could turn any music video into a 3D post in seconds, then share it with his grandma using only a mobile phone. Introducing Drop It. So what Drop It does is that it leverages the power of music and its ability to evoke powerful and emotional responses while being a really fantastic vector of creativity for the younger generation, but also a self-expression platform so that we reconnect the two generations. So the way it works is very simple. We have a mobile 3D creative tool where you can turn any music into a 3D post, and we have an augmented reality platform that enables anyone to scan a marker and reveal the 3D scene in AR. Our audience is divided into two different audiences. Obviously, we have our end user, our consumer, on one hand the millennials, on the other hand the elderly population, but also organization, whether it's in the healthcare industry or government or practitioners, but also corporation in the music industry or different corporation and potentially advertisers. Our business model, as opposed to any other social platform, is not only relying on advertising. We have identified a lot of different revenue streams, but also a lot of different type of people buying and different things that they could buy from us, from merchandising, from in-app purchase and digital tools, creative tools, but also a SaaS model, obviously an advertising model, or potentially government grants. So there's the different ways we can drive revenue within the app. So while our market is growing really fast, I mean, we know augmented reality is growing and it's doing really well at the moment. The revenue projection is pretty big, so I'm not going to get into big numbers, but we have managed to actually get into what we think is a niche, which is not only providing people with a tool to create augmented reality and 3D, but also view. So that creation and view doesn't really exist at the moment. The technology is already ready, and we have started working on prototypes that we know are working. So what we have to do now is just making those prototypes more robust and good looking, but we know the technology already works. And the future is pretty bright for us because there's wearable coming, there's a lot, in the roadmap. So we think augmented reality is only going to be more and more mainstream. The product is pretty simple to use. So the user flow is as follows. Step one, you only have to place a marker or an artwork at your grandparents' place. Could be a photo, it could be a drawing from your kids, it could be anything. We can turn any 2D visual into a marker. Then the second step is to design in 3D and your music post. You get any music video that you want and you can turn it into a 3D post. It literally takes seconds. Then you drop it, so you attach it to the marker, and once it's done, when your grandmother is going to point her camera phone to the marker, she's going to reveal the scene in 3D, in augmented reality, sorry. So that's that simple. And it's only one click, and our grandparents don't have to learn a very complex platform. They only have to turn on the app and scan the wall. So we can develop that product in two ways. Either we develop it fully, natively, and we have the technology available for that, and this is what we've started doing, but we can also leverage existing partnership with either the social network that already have augmented reality engines. The TikTok of the world, the Snapchat and Facebook are also working with Google that have Google Lens and Poly, which is a 3D library, and of course YouTube because they're into music. So that's it for me. That was Drop It. I hope you understand the concept and like it as much as we do. And please get in touch if you need to talk to us.
Hi everyone, my name is Christine Chan and I love to sing. Every Sunday I go to my local church and sing in the choir. During COVID-19, we haven't been able to meet, which means that we've had to learn to use Zoom, but it's not what we're looking for because we need to practice individually and ensure we are all singing the right parts. I'm retired, a stay-at-home mom, and I cannot find a solution that meets my needs. As a senior citizen, I know that music is good for my spiritual, physical, emotional, and mental well-being. As part of my local church community, we've had to change the way we've been practicing. Instead of practicing together, we need to practice by ourselves and mix voices together. But we've had some troubles, like how do we know we are singing the correct notes? How can we practice with other parts? And how do we inspire and encourage one another to keep singing through these tough times? During this weekend, my team and I have created Acapella Mixer, an app where you can sing along to your favorite songs. It's like karaoke, but you'll be singing in harmony. Our purpose is to empower everyone to be able to sing anytime, anywhere. Our initial target market will be choir members, like myself, who have been singing for many years and want to keep on improving. There are 3 simple steps to do this. Firstly, select the song that you want to sing. Then, choose if you want to sing in soprano, alto, tenor, or bass. Then you can sing with other parts to create a beautiful a cappella song. Now we'll show you a demo. As you can see on the left, I have my own dashboard where I can choose my favorite song. Today, let's play Amazing Grace. Here, I can choose how I want to practice the song. I'm going to sing alto. After I press play, I can start singing. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound. Once it's done and recorded, I can go to the mix function where I can mix other parts with mine and listen to it. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound. And the best thing about this app is that I can earn points by singing to the dynamics, tempo, and tone pitch, as well as sharing it with my friends and family, and it's so much fun. There are 2 key reasons why I know this will be a great solution for us: the harmonization and gamification. So far, I haven't found an app that allows me to practice in harmony, and also I get rewarded more and more points the more I practice. Our business model will be subscription-based, meaning we can take a reoccurring monthly fee based on what the user wants. For example, if someone wants to practice by themselves with some popular songs, then they only pay $2 a month. If someone wants to find a variety of songs and wants to practice in parts, it will be $5 a month. And if someone wants to record and mix voices with other people, such as their fellow choir members, it will be $10 a month. With over 11,000 churches in Australia, school groups and musical institutes, this could be a really big market to tap into. So how will we reach to customers? At the start, we'll go to church groups. I'm part of a large network, and also there are many associations we can bring on board. As the next step, we'll go out to other choir groups. Another channel would be aged care facilities. I also have some friends who are at Anglicare, and they bring in music therapists to help enlighten the residents. These people can really help spread the word about us. The team consists of myself, Christine, and I am an alto singer. My daughter is Angela, and she's helped design this concept, and my son is a technical engineer. I believe over the next 3 to 6 months, we can make this happen. As you can see, our roadmap consists of gaining deeper insights into customers, creating a prototype that we can test and gain feedback on, and we hope to deploy it as soon as possible. Acapella Mixer is an app that helps empower everyone to be able to sing in harmony. And as I always say to my fellow choir members and family, Singing is the best form of exercise. Thank you.
Hey, AIM 2020 Hackathon judges. It's really great to be throwing our hat in the ring for what is a wonderful initiative. My name is Darren. I am the founder of a self-funded startup called Inverse. It's a live VR streaming platform. At the outbreak of the pandemic and through 2020, we've seen a huge transition to digital. One of the problems here is that people are being forced to work from home. And so they're living their whole lives through exactly the same medium and where we're trying to stream music. And so whilst it's great to have access to music through these channels, it really fails to capture the essence and significant mental health benefits of being out of the home and that whole gig experience that we associate with all those positive mental health benefits. We are going through a rapid prototyping process. So in November this month, we've launched a series of gigs. We built Australia's first made for VR broadcast venue here in South Melbourne. Obviously, VR can enable broader accessibility and people to access experiences they may not be able to. For the live music sector, it really means access to the best seats in the house and perspectives that you would never be able to get in real life. Been talking to a few venues as well, and the accessibility question can be quite challenging. For older and historic venues, they were never designed with modern accessibility requirements, and it's almost impossible for them to adapt these venues to broad-based accessibility when you think about physical disabilities. And so VR can enable these venues and the artists that play there a much broader audience, overcoming these accessibility issues. There's a fine line between VR being a solution to accessibility. It's not an excuse for venues not to have accessibility plans, but where we find that intersection where it's simply impossible or it can't be scalable with the number of seating, VR can really broaden that market and improve accessibility. We're partnering with Get Skilled Access Australia to look at what this means from a broader perspective, user experience testing, but also we're exploring some really cool ideas, like the idea you can have an Auslan avatar. So this is a 3D avatar that accompanies you to the gig. Can be personalized to you, really opens up some exciting opportunities to have your own personal Auslan interpreter with you during the gig. We can look at things like AI and customization of that avatar for the individual. So really exciting stuff. But at the heart of what we're doing is this idea that you can bring your best digital self to your favorite events. Your best digital self may not be your physical self. And that's where VR can play a really vital role. It's about broad accessibility to immersive performances, and it can enhance mental health, reduce social isolation, and transcend physical limitations. These are the things that are passionately driving us in this platform. Thank you.
And that's all of them. I think you would agree there's some really interesting ideas in there, and I'm really excited to see what the judges had to make out of all of them. Back to you, Steve.
Thanks a lot, Timo. So what do you think? Pretty amazing, huh? In there we had Drop It using augmented reality. We had Inverse trying to use VR to drive the live experience forward. Lavender using connections to the Internet of Things to measure your heart rate in real time and try to give you music that would help you calm down. And a cappella mixer there, creating a really, really great utility for choirs everywhere. I thought they were really amazing, and I also want to make a quick point to shout out to those who didn't make this final group, because your ideas were also amazing. It was really difficult for us to have to whittle it down to just 4. But if you're out there in Viewerland, we're going to just put up those links again. So if you would like to vote for the People's Choice, you can do that. I should stress we're using a technology called Vimeo. And if you're finding it a little bit tricky, you have to sign in with your name and tick some T's and C's. It's probably best done on a computer, on a desktop computer rather than a mobile or an iPad if you've got one. But click up those links or go to the AIM blog. You'll be able to see an embed there of the chat. Once you've logged into the chat widget, you should be able to see the poll and then you can vote. So we're going to keep it open probably for another, 5 minutes or so while we have a quick chat. And then we'll announce the People's Choice before then we get into hearing who won the $5,000 for from the judges. So tell me, guys, what did you think?
Oh, it was brilliant. Like the choice was of the full list that we got to judge was incredible, and it's really exciting to see this much innovation coming out of Australia. But yeah, not an easy decision. We had to deliberate long and hard on our choices. So what do you want to hear from us?
Well, I'm curious. I mean, I suppose the theme itself was to promote wellness, whether that be through physical or mental health, and that wasn't necessarily the criteria that would choose a winner. So I'm curious to know from each of you, which of you do you think actually addressed that particular thing best? Which of those ideas do you think will have the biggest impact on someone's health or wellness?
Who wants to start?
Yeah, look, I suppose I personally connected to lavender. So I have suffered with severe panic disorder off and on for probably 15 years. And I also am obsessed with biotech and biodata. So to be able to connect a solution to that is a really interesting component for me. I've done a couple of accelerators in the wellness space, and I've seen how that can also be roadblocks and benefits. But I'm really, really interested. I think, you know, if that can be done well, I think that there's a huge amount of impact that can be made from an individual mental health capacity.
Amazing. And what about you, Nick?
Yeah, I think with all the technologies, obviously one of my companies being in music health, it was really interesting to see other people's approaches to similar problems.
Yeah.
And sort of looking at it from a different lens. I thought some of the approaches were incredibly smart. Lavender was really cool with the approach with biometrics, because that's something that we're very interested in as well. But also just, you know, the benefits of, for example, singing with a cappella. You know, that's just, it seems so obvious in a way, but then when it's presented in that way, it's actually like, oh, that's a really useful tool. And I think each of them have definitely a certain application that can be incredibly beneficial. I'd love to learn more as well offline from them, because I think there's different ways that you can angle those businesses for success, and that'd be really interesting to find out more about. But yeah, really, really cool pitches.
Yeah, and I think it was interesting with the two that you mentioned, so Lavender and Acapella, they made use of our sandbox tools. So we had 40,000 tracks in there, which was provided by Universal Music Group and Universal Music Publishing Group. So both of those were able to make use of that, which was great to see. When we look at XR, VR, AR, it was interesting that we had two finalists in here. I'll throw this one to you, Jackie, but what's your opinion on, like, have you been getting your head into these things? Have you had a go?
Yeah, I actually last year at a Grammys Week event really damaged my shins because I had one of those on, and it was a Melissa Etheridge concert, and I kept walking to see where she was, and I walked straight into a glass table. Oh no! And it you know those moments where it really hurts and you're trying to be cool and pretend it didn't, and you actually want to cry. So that was my first experience with VR. It was that convincing. I think it's brilliant. I think I lost my father to Alzheimer's, and I've had a lot of experience being in nursing homes and palliative care, and I think anything like what Nick is doing with Mirror Music is so deeply connects with me. Anything that can bring people back from that fog that they slip into, you know, particularly with Alzheimer's, is incredibly important. So if this can work, and if it's something that patients and residents of nursing homes would feel comfortable wearing, and I think that could be the barrier to entry, because they're at an age demographic where they haven't seen anything like this. But if it works, like that prima ballerina who just danced recently in her chair in the nursing home to Swan Lake. And you know, back to Nicholas's idea with Drop It, I love the idea. My question is, would people that are of a different generation that might not be so technically savvy have the wherewithal to put the camera up? So I was wondering what might be interesting is if it could be voice automated.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And then it plays them the video with the message with their grandchild's voice attached to it. And then they could play it over and over and over again. And this would actually be really good for someone that also has Alzheimer's and dementia, because they could just play the message again and again and again and again. It just, yeah, some truly great ideas. There's so much more there to dive into. And from a heart level, yeah, we all loved a cappella. We just thought that was really special.
Yeah, and it was a lovely presentation they put together too.
Really beautiful presentation.
Definitely got the highest scores for singing on their own demo. I appreciate
that. That was awesome.
And Darren actually, while I have this in my hands, Darren from Inverse sent this up just so that we could have a chance to experience the work that he's done in virtual reality, which was just a lovely touch. So thank you, Darren.
That's great.
I'll send it back, promise.
I might just also add though, so we did a lot of research in dementia and Alzheimer's around using virtual reality, and I was part of a team, and we found that it was a big roadblock to use.
To get it on.
And so I think AR and VR have a really cool place. I think it's still trying to find its way.
Yeah.
It's been trying to play in publishing for over a decade on how they can bring advertising to life and how they can create more engaging ways of connecting customer to brand. I just don't know if we've totally nailed it on how it actually becomes a regularity in our lives instead of a roadblock. To drop it point, thinking through the entire customer experience, you want to make sure that if you're putting something in the home that it's beautiful. And so thinking through that whole map of what does that look like and how does that create an experience from start to finish, as well as with VR, is what we really need to think through, because they're amazing tools, great business ideas. It's how do we get through the roadblocks and the challenges that might come up that have already risen in a variety of other industries, and how to learn from those.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things that sort of struck me through this whole process is, you've got to remember a lot of these ideas were turned around in such a short amount of time.
Yeah.
On top of doing work. I know because Timo and I have been speaking to them for the last week, and some of them didn't actually start until the weekend because they said, I'm sorry, I've got to work. I'm flat out. And it's a really busy time of year, in a crazy year. But to be able to sort of pull these things together and get the idea, work it through, develop the pitch, create the video, it's been a monumental task. So
that is the joy of entrepreneurship, Stephen.
That's right.
Like, with all due respect, that's how it rolls. You're doing 100% of everything at the same time. So it's a small and little taste.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'd love to see the People's Choice Award. So can we throw that up on the screen, please? And it'll take a little while before it pops up on my screen. We'll see who won.
Oh my gosh, I'm so delighted. I can't wait.
Dun, dun, dun. All right. Wow, there must be a really big lag. Maybe you guys can fill us in. Who won? It was Lavender.
Woohoo! There you go, Lavender.
Oh, congratulations to Scott Polchleb.
There you go, Scott.
So yeah, Lavender, if you don't recall it, was the app which helps bring you back from a panic attack by understanding the rhythms of your heart rate, the variability, and then iterating by playing your music and understanding whether that's having the desired impact, and then switching it up and playing something else. So congratulations, Scott. Now, judges, I know you've had a chance to have a good think about who the winner is. Who's going to tell us who won the judges' prize and the $5,000?
Oh, 100%. We love Lavender.
Yeah. So. The double win!
The double win. Yeah, look, and I'd love to start by saying a couple of things about why. I loved the product. I think it has a great mission. I understand what it's trying to do. I'm renowned for direct feedback, so I might provide a bit of that, in that coming from someone who experiences panic disorder, when I'm in that state, to input data or know what to do is actually non-existent. The brain fog kind of happens. I have a list of things and people that I call that I go, oh, have I done my list? And it's silly things like don't drink caffeine for a couple of days, or, just things that you think would be normal common sense, kind of evacuate. And I would wonder, how do we make this push notified versus having to put input? But how does that become a regular kind of push notification for me to someone tell me what to do, because I'm generally lost in that environment. But the level of impact that this can create is incredibly valuable.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And how about other judges? What did you think about it? What sort of singled that out for you?
Well, I think for me, I'm very big on design, and I thought the design of it already at this stage was incredible, and that's a big pull for me, because particularly for these types of products, whether we'd like to admit it or not, we're drawn to the design of something because we want to feel good when we use it. So that's a massive tick. Having spent a lot of time around the devices and the biofeedback, I definitely have some tips there on how to navigate that to make that a smooth experience. But I think he's onto something really, really great. I think there's definitely a need for it, and music is the way to do it, in my opinion. So
amazing. And to give you picked it up, but Scott is actually a designer by trade. So he's
noticeable.
A career designer for probably decades. I think he's quite old. Anyway, Jax, what do you think?
It's kind of,
what does that make me?
kind of extraordinary to hear that they all pulled their decks together so quickly, because the presentation was extraordinary, the design was flawless. I thought it was something that had been in existence for 6 months to a year. So I think also too, friends, family, colleagues, everybody is impacted by panic disorder and anxiety these days, and you can understand why. So to Andrea's point, if it's something that can push the notifications, I think that would be phenomenal. But when I was watching it, I actually immediately thought of two things. I thought of some of our team that suffer anxiety. If they had a smartwatch on and it sent them a notification, if that helped, that would be extraordinary. And I thought about my great aunt, Auntie Claire Weeks. She was the first female doctor of science in Australia, was the first person to put a name to panic disorder and anxiety. And she was always talking about float through it and count to 10. And I think what Scott has created is the exact ability for this to do that, because it's that reset. Especially if it can send you the push notification, it will help people float through it, count to 10, and find their bearing to then be able to breathe and move forward. I think it's an incredibly powerful application, and I don't intend to sound condescending when I say this, but really proud of him. I think he's done something really important here.
Amazing. Well, that brings us to the end of our proceedings. I want to thank all three of you so much for giving up your time to do the judging, but also to come here today and to have a chat. It's been amazing. And to everyone at home, thanks for tuning in. Please, we intend to run this again next year. Hopefully this will be the first of many annual hackathons. And there's going to be a lot of other activity happening at the AIM Innovation Hub. So get in touch, check us out on the webpage. We'll keep putting things on the AIM blog. And if you have an idea out there and you're interested in coming and joining us over here at AIM, I'd love to hear from you. I'm going to put my email address up on the end slate, so please don't hesitate to reach out, whether you want to be a founder, a mentor, an investor, or if you're out there in the industry and you want to get more involved. We'd love to hear from you and partner up. But thanks so much and have an awesome day.